the Islamification of Ireland?
Ireland is definitely experiencing Islamification. We have an open border crisis. We have a crime crisis. Ireland is being flooded with illegals. There's not hotels to stay in. They're being filled with migrants. People in Ireland are making billions off this human trafficking. Women in Ireland are buying deep heat and carrying sharp objects just to walk around the streets. There's stabbings every second day.
Enoch Burke, what's his story?
He said, no, this is my job. I'm refusing the pronouns. I'm here to teach. And he went to prison. It was 500 days. That book teaches young 12-year-olds about blowies, handies, bumming.
And you're saying this is, oh my gosh, they tell the kids to keep this secret.
The Secrecy Pact said what happens in the class stays in the class.
Bumming. It is a universal truth that many men like sticking their willies. What the hell is a 12-year-old accessing this for? The last 2 months, you guys have really listened when I've asked you to subscribe. Thank you so much. Now, the next step is to ask you on YouTube to hit the reminder notification on my homepage. Without that, you'll miss out on my videos, and we wouldn't want that. Make sure as well that notifications are set as on YouTube or it won't work. If you're watching on Spotify, please hit follow. Jana London, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. I wanted to talk about Ireland. You live in Ireland, and you've been talking recently and tweeting and things about the Garda, which is the police, coming down really hard on free speech. It's gone bananas over there, has it?
It has. Any dissenting voice on anything that's happening to our beautiful country, if you're a dissenting voice or you're influencing the public, the Garda, the media, and the state will come down very heavy-handed.
And the issue is that people always think you must have done something, you get in trouble. Are people being arrested a bit like in the UK?
We haven't had, I suppose, any formal arrest for things like social media posts or memes that offend someone, but there's been a lot of intimidation by the Garda. A few examples are when there were protests against mass immigration happening in small towns and villages. Out of nowhere, when people were peacefully protesting, the Garda came out, and it's been caught on video of them pepper spraying innocent people, beating people with batons. This includes elderly people. This includes young people. An elderly woman at a bus stop was pepper sprayed waiting for a doctor appointment. So there's been the physical Garda brutality. There's also been the intimidation. It could be, asking the courts, for example, in my case, for the court order to spy on me, put me under surveillance. Yeah,
that's mad. And also to look at your messages on Twitter?
Yes, my private direct messages, look at all of my information on Twitter for a certain date range. And I have it on good source that Meta, which is Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, may have gotten the same request. And I haven't heard back from Meta and if they did or if they complied. But Elon Musk and his team at Twitter went to court on behalf of these 10 people who were under this overreach, and he declined and fought the government, and the government walked away. He said, this is an overreach. We're not giving you this information. But how many other companies have been approached and how many have complied?
How did it feel that Musk was fighting on your behalf?
That felt really good to know that we have a platform that is really, truly embracing free speech. It felt good as a consumer. I pay for premium to know that my money is well spent on the free speech platform. So the Garda court order, when they went to the judge, was under a criminal act, which is drug trafficking or a serious crime like terrorism. So it was really shocking when I first got that in my email. I thought it was a hoax. I actually thought they must have made a mistake and somebody forgot to cross out the drug trafficking crime and put, a meme or tweet that offended someone. So we thought it was a hoax, myself and my solicitor and my IT guy, because it was so outrageous. But in fact, when Twitter posted on their account, I saw that it was very real.
What kind of messages were they hoping to find? Do you have secret mad messages on Twitter?
No, the messages they wanted to find were from July 15th to 18th, if I recall. And I couldn't remember what I was doing that day. So like any busy mom, I picked up my phone and looked at photos, and I was celebrating my 50th birthday on one of the days. I was climbing trees with my children, and another day during that period, I was having a sauna and swimming in the sea in Ireland. So nothing really too inappropriate there. The other group, the Irish Inquiry, which is one of our independent media groups, they also got the court order, and those were the same dates that they wanted to have for their information. So there must have been some sort of protest at that time, and they were looking for something that may have been criminal. There was a lot of activity around Newtown Mount Kennedy, a village in Wicklow, and also Coolock, a town in Dublin, whereby they were protesting against these illegal migrants coming in. And in some areas, there was a lot of brutality, the police attacking people, but in other areas, there were fires. So perhaps they thought I was involved in that activity.
It's such a crazy thing because it's all relatively modern. I guess decades ago, people didn't have Twitter messages to one another. Maybe there were letters, but that was probably rare, especially if you were plotting something disastrous. You wouldn't write it in a letter. You'd be on the phone to someone, or you'd meet them in person. And nowadays, it's a strange thing because most of us do live our lives through the internet, and it means there's a record of everything we've said. And I feel like we went into this contract with the authorities years ago that we didn't know we'd entered into, which was that anything we've written to friends is one day open to analysis from the police. I understand why they might have to do that for extreme cases of terrorism and things like that, but I think the threshold has to be far higher than this lady sat in front of me.
Absolutely. So they want to, Ireland used to be known as the land of saints and scholars, but now Ireland is sort of the petri dish for globalism. This is where it's coming from, the globalism, and also the EU, where they want Ireland to be the land of saints, scholars, and censors, particularly bringing in one of the toughest hate crime bills in the world into Ireland. They passed the hate crime legislation and added the 72 genders into that to give more rights to the men in dresses, and they're pushing through the hate speech bill. The Minister for Justice, who is now the Minister for Education, Helen McEntee, has been trying to push it through for 2 years. And with that bill, if that passes, the Garda could show up at your house, ask to see all of your devices and get your passwords, and you could be arrested and put through the process guilty until proven innocent if you don't hand everything over. So this is really a case of an overreach and an infringement on the freedoms that we all love in a democratic society.
Imagine if Musk hadn't taken over X. Right now, it's almost 100% certain, because the old owners of X were working with the sort of Democrats in the US to allow all these kinds of things. They'd be just nosying through your messages. I mean, how would that make you feel?
I would feel violated. I have nothing to hide. In fact, most of the work I do regarding the pushing of the transgender agenda in schools and protesting against the immigration and, the excess deaths and all of the other things, everything I'm very vocal about. I do leaflets, I do podcasts, I give radio appearances. I'm here with you today. I have nothing to hide. But just because I have nothing to hide doesn't make me feel it's okay for them to be snooping around my messages. It feels it's a serious invasion of my privacy. It feels like I'm living in a North Korea type of society, not a democracy like Ireland. And I know Vice President J.D. Vance has a big concern with Ireland, and he wrote a letter to the ambassador to America back in 2023 to ask what Ireland's going to do if these hate speech laws go through. We are departing in Ireland from one of the basic principles of democracy, which is free speech.
The ability to hate if you want. I mean, the whole thing of hate speech just really winds me up. I just don't. I had Michael Murphy from The Telegraph. He's done some documentaries about Ireland as well. I don't think he's actually Irish, but he might have some ancestry, but he's got the Murphy name, to discuss the very, very sudden immigration in Ireland.
Yes.
Living there, I think you're initially American, aren't you?
Yes, I was born and raised in America, beautiful state of Maine, and I moved to Ireland 22 years ago.
You've picked up the accent, haven't you?
A little bit.
A little bit of an accent. I would do the same thing. Same thing if I was Irish, if I was living in Ireland. But how is the situation? Are you day to day just seeing like, what the hell?
We're in crisis. We have an open border crisis. We have a crime crisis. We're in a serious situation. So, Ireland is being flooded with illegals, and I use the word illegals because up to 85% of these, mostly men are landing on their own, without their women and children. They're landing up to 85% with no passport or ID. And many of them are coming from countries that are safe. And with the different regulations on immigration, they're supposed to claim asylum in the first safe country, the first one they enter. a lot of their countries don't even have direct flights to Ireland. So unless they're coming on a dinghy, it's not the first safe country. So they are invading. These are unwelcome invaders to every town, every village. Tourism has reduced significantly. It came out in the news, more than 25% reduction. People, there's not hotels to stay in. They're being filled with migrants. People in Ireland are making billions off this human trafficking. So if I'm a hotel owner, I'm going to make a lot more money by bringing in these illegal men to stay in the hotel than I would renting a room out to you or me on a holiday. So it's really a problem.
The government would pay you, is that how it works?
Exactly. The government would pay. For example, there's a small scale local pub down the road from me in Ireland, and it came out in the news that the man who converted this pub to a migrant centre is getting paid 65,000 euros a month.
Wow.
That's a lot more than he would get selling beer on a weekend. So people are selling off their country because of greed. But as a woman in Ireland, I have to walk around the streets and carry protection with me. Now, we're not allowed guns or pepper spray, but women in Ireland are buying deep heat or making aerosol sprays and carrying sharp objects just to walk around the streets. Yeah. There's stabbings every second day.
Because you're not even allowed... pepper spray?
No, you're not allowed pepper spray.
Which must shock Americans listening, because you can have guns there. You can't have guns here, but you can't even have pepper spray, which I think is, I haven't, maybe is there lasting damage from pepper spray? Is that?
It's not lasting damage. When I actually moved to college and lived in the city, my dad, who was a correctional officer at the state prison, sent me off to college with pepper spray and said, if you ever need it, please don't hesitate to protect yourself. Now, unfortunately, I did have to use it for someone that broke into my house, and he fell on the porch and stumbled out to the car. I quickly rang the guards, but it only stings for maybe half an hour. It doesn't do permanent damage. But in Ireland, women are not allowed to carry something like that. So walking through the streets of Dublin, people wonder, are they going to be attacked? We had 3 school children be stabbed just over a year ago in Parnell Square in the broad daylight. We had a young teacher, Aisling Murphy, jogging and got brutally stabbed 11 times, although media didn't report the stabbing until it was uncovered. They falsified the news. So they don't want to report on migrant crime. And the Minister for Justice was saying that there's no link between open borders and crime. But if we look at the likes of Germany and Sweden, where a small percentage of their population is foreign. For example, I think it's in Germany, 12% are foreigners, but over 60% are those who are in doing the gang rape crime. So there's a direct link, but our government wants to deny it. Instead, what they do is they try to tap our phones, the police brutality, protesting peacefully against the immigration, and they go out and vilify people like me by using labels such as bigots, racist, transphobic, extremists. So they try to use such bad labels that if anybody sees us out peacefully assembling against this invasion, the public remember the labels that media gave, and you're vilified.
So to reiterate, this is a government that is letting in an extraordinary number of people from places that have very different values about women.
Yes.
And we know from stats in Germany and Sweden, as you say, I believe Denmark as well has just the statistics prove this, that are more likely to commit crimes against women. The women are not allowed to even carry pepper spray and defend themselves. And for speaking out against it, the Irish government wants to have access to your private messages and basically deems you a terrorist. And this is supposed to be a liberal, that's their idea of liberal, progressive society.
Yes. And when we talk about liberal and progressive, I think a really important point to make is it's all inverted. So if we look at, for example, even how they're pushing the transgender agenda in schools, they're doing it under the guise of being inclusive and being kind and being an ally for all of those trans-identifying children. But it's not inclusive to children like mine who may be gender critical, who believe there are only 2 sexes. Biological sex cannot be changed.
Your children better believe that.
So if you don't believe it, the children will be reprimanded. Those children who don't believe it, who use their critical thinking and follow the science, they will be told they're a bully. There's even a new program in Ireland being rolled out called Conultus, which is the Irish word for kindness. It's the anti-bullying program. What that's doing is sneaking the LGBTQI plus in the back door, expecting my children to be an ally, or they will be considered a bully and be reprimanded under this policy.
And one of the things you've been tweeting about, just to go back to the sort of migrant issue here, is the boys that are being dressed as girls in Afghanistan. Just to reiterate that point about, not all cultures are equal, and that is what we are bringing. I mean, are you noticing more I suppose, the Islamification of Ireland?
Ireland is definitely experiencing Islamification. I mean, you go into certain parts of Dublin and I, as a white female, would be a minority. You know, the amount of faces that are covered, which I personally believe nobody should be allowed to go around wearing the hijab or the burqa to cover their face. It's a security issue, you know, that we have facial recognition going on. Well, how are they going to recognize a face that could commit a crime if it's completely covered up except the eyes? So absolutely.
And the social aspect of it as well.
And the social aspect as well. So, you know, I am a migrant and I'm not against migrants at all. I moved to Ireland 22 years ago, but I'm all about controlled immigration and doing it the proper legal way and flooding the borders with unvetted people, mostly men who don't respect our culture, putting 1,000 men in a small accommodation. What could go wrong?
They would say, and I've heard that the other argument, which is, yes, but you try to do it the legal way and you can't because it's so difficult to do. There are billions of people around the world right now who want to come to Western societies and unfortunately then don't adapt and try to make those societies how their original societies were in the first place. But it is very difficult to do it. You know, it takes years and years. And then some people somehow do seem to be able to come. I don't understand how it all works. Nobody does. And then you might then respond to them, or I would respond to them, well, that's how the world works. I'd love to live in America, perhaps, but it wouldn't be very easy. In fact, it would probably be impossible for me to get a visa. I'd love to live in lots of different places, and I can't do it. And if they did open the borders for everybody to go to America, well, most of the world would move to America. But as soon as they could afford to, any which way, they'd all be going. And America would now have a population of 5 billion. Yeah. So it has to. I don't know how it can continue. Do you think there's a sense with Ireland, and it's something I've been wondering about, that they are trying to be a moral superpower? I've heard Sweden talk about becoming a moral superpower. You've got like political superpowers like America, Russia, China, maybe the UK was once such a thing. And then Ireland's never going to compete. Sweden can never compete in that sense, or an economic power. But what they can do is show the world how welcoming and moral and just they are. Do you think there's some of that in Ireland?
I think there's a few reasons why the government is flooding people in. If we look at sort of Is it about money? Yes, they're getting paid from the United Nations, the EU to flood our borders. There's money involved. There's probably a sense of ideologues, people who really think that it's kind to flood our borders and let all these poor men in. There may be some people who are compromised, and then some of it is about ego. So they want Ireland to be the best boy in class. They want the world to see that Ireland is going along with the global agenda, because this isn't driven on a grassroots level at all. This is driven from the United Nations. What's happening is coming from the World Health Organization. We even saw documents that said, due to the climate crisis, we need to start, migrating people in. So they're using the climate crisis to flood people in. It's also being done from Davos as well, and the World Economic Forum. And if we look at many people years ago would have thought the Sustainable Development Goals were a conspiracy, but anyone can look up Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2030. And if we look at how the world is doing with those goals, there was a summit in New York last year. And in the summit, they stated that the world is only at about 17% with these Sustainable Development Goals, 17% achievement. Ireland is over 80%. So Ireland is trying to be the best global boy in class. The more superpower. And they're destroying the country piece by piece. So tourists who want to visit Ireland, or people like myself who moved there, came because we loved Ireland. We loved the culture, the language, the people, the heritage. That is all under attack. They want to have this sort of homogenous, one world health, one world government. So when you go to any country, it all feels the same and looks the same. They don't believe in sovereignty. In fact, our Taoiseach, Micheál Martin, stated that sovereignty is he doesn't want any backwards idea of sovereignty. He doesn't want us to be a nation. He wants us to be one world. And he's one of the ones driving this forward for the country.
That's really interesting. And it's something I've not looked into that much, was like the word globalism and things like that. And I think because years ago, it hadn't happened yet to such an extent. I guess more and more people are waking up to it. And I suppose some of the people who started at first and were most extreme put some conspiracy theories in there. And it was about, this is the race that's the puppet masters and things like that. And I don't think that's necessary for the whole globalism aspect, which now we can see, as you say, clearly is happening. There does seem to be whether it's conscious or not, this attempt to make everything the same. Everything's just a parking lot or an airport, and we're just all in different parts of the airport. What what a sad state of affairs that is. And as you say, we lose, especially Ireland, because Ireland, more than any other place in the world, maybe, there's a few countries, maybe Iceland as well, they have this history and almost folklore. You go over and it's something so different to anything else. And
it really is.
You're seeing that eradicated.
I'm seeing that completely be wiped out before my eyes. And it's really sad for me as an American who chose to make my home in Ireland 22 years ago. And I chose to raise my children there who were born there. But the agenda, the globalist agenda, is also about control. So if we look at what's happening with the migration, we look at the attack on free speech, we look at the attack on children and women. I mean, in Ireland, they had a referendum last year. They wanted to erase the word woman and mother and home from our constitution. Woman and mother, erase us. So it's about control and it's about blurring reality.
Who won the referendum?
Our group, by a landslide, 75% voted
really?
No.
Well, there you go.
Fantastic. People don't want this.
And how that just shows how removed the politicians are from the actual people.
Absolutely. And one politician who was sponsoring this bill, he was the Minister for Children and Integration. He actually recruited these migrants in 8 different languages on Twitter and promised them their own door accommodation. Minister Roderick O'Gorman recruited all these single men, and he was the Minister for Children as well. So he was pushing all of this ideology into the children's classroom. But it's about control. If you tell someone it's black when it's white and everything's inverted and you blur reality, and the children come out of school as Marxists, as social justice warriors, they will be much easier to control because they will lack critical thinking. So they don't want you to be a critical thinker. They want you to be confused, subservient to the government, because then you're raising a generation that can be social justice warriors for the government, but they won't have the life skills to have any chance in life. And that's what's happening in our school system.
I saw another example of disconnect between the Irish government and people, which was Ireland is often considered sort of most anti-Israel and often anti-Semitic because I think they identify sort of the oppressed versus oppressor, and they see it that way. But the Irish people voted for the Israeli Eurovision contestant. They would, I think, more than most other nations did. And I thought that shows what a huge disconnect between the actual people and the government.
Yes, there's a huge disconnect. The people in Ireland are disenfranchised at the moment. There's a real disconnect between the government and the people, but the government don't listen to the people. They are not answering to the people. What's happening in Ireland is it's sort of run by the government. It used to be democratic. The people had a say. It's run by the government, also civil society. We have, for NGOs, we have 32,000 NGOs in Little Ireland, and they get public funding of $6 billion a year. So the government has their agenda. The NGOs are just an arm of the government. We have the media, and then we have our supranationals like the United Nations, WHO and WEF. One of our leaders in Ireland, Leo Varadkar, who was our Taoiseach and Taoiseach, he was a young global leader at the World Economic Forum. Now, he quickly disappeared from politics, and now he's over lecturing in the Harvard Kennedy Business School, which is a globalist hub. Klaus Schwab and Kissinger would have been involved in that school. So Leo's disappeared, but he was one of the young global leaders pushing the World Economic Forum agenda in Ireland.
I see. It's just fallen apart now. And of course, with any kind of ideology, this starts with the schools. Mao obviously was very good with that. Stalin, Hitler, they were all, with the youth and the young people. Before I go into what was being taught in the Irish schools and things, I want to ask a little bit about the case of Enoch Burke. Yeah. What's his story?
So Enoch Burke I say because he's still on payroll. He is a teacher at Wilson's Hospital School, which is a Church of Ireland school, a Protestant school in Westmeath. And a child wanted to identify using new pronouns, they, them. And Enoch Burke refused to use those pronouns due to his Christian faith. And also it was against biology and science. He refused, and he had an altercation with the principal. He had a conversation. They suspended him and said, you have to stay off the school grounds. And he showed up for his job every day. He said, no, this is my job. I'm refusing the pronouns. I'm here to teach. And he went to prison for nearly, I think it was 500 days. Now, the pronouns were what started it. So although he broke the court order and went to the school gate every day, that was just a kind of a red herring in this situation. What really started it is he refused to use pronouns. But he's now been vindicated by the Cass report that came out, which was commissioned by the NHS here in England, Dr. Hilary Cass, pronouns are not a neutral territory. Pronouns should not be used in schools or anywhere with children because it's affirming they're in the wrong body. So he was absolutely right to refuse that. But they are fining him every day he turns up at the school, and his legal fees are really, really high at the moment. And they're looking at how they're going to recoup that money from Enoch Burke, how they're going to get that money back for his legal fees that should never have happened in the first place.
So he's lost everything from taking a stand.
Yes. And more teachers need to take a stand. We had a whistleblower teacher who stood up against what was taught in DCU, and she did a whistleblower interview on our channel, which got about 1 million hits the first week. And we need more teachers across the UK, Ireland, the US, and further afield to speak up and say, I'm not harming children. I'm not going to use pronouns. I'm not going to teach transgenderism to children.
I suppose you rarely have to use someone's pronouns. And that's one of the most infuriating things about the whole system. These are my pronouns. Well, I don't really need to use them unless you're not there, which also has long been a sort of difference in politeness between sort of British and American, because Americans often will say him when you're in the room with them, which is considered quite rude in the UK and probably Ireland as well. So I never was just like, and what about him? You'd be like, excuse me, it's rude. And suddenly we're having to sort of announce one's pronouns despite never, don't you worry about what I'm going to refer to you as. I might be rude about you if I want. I might say that bastard or something. I don't need to use your pronoun for it. So how do we know how that initially came about? Was he just like, was the kid just like, listen, Mr. Burke, you're going to have to call me they, them. And he went, nah. Or what happened?
I think it came from, if I recall, a memo that he got saying this child's going to use pronouns. I don't know if the student actually said to him directly or if it was a memo, but whatever came about, he said, no, I'm not using pronouns. The transgenderism goes against my Christian faith. And the school is deeply in liaising with Belong To. Belong To is Ireland's trans right NGO. They're heavily funded. They spend a week in the schools every year in secondary school for Stand Up Week. And for Stand Up Week, they talk about things like transphobic bullying and how to be an ally and top surgery and bottom surgery and don't misgender or dead name anyone or you could be reprimanded. So Belong To also have, in addition to the week in school, they have an 18-month, I call it the 18-month indoctrination program. If a school signs up for that, that school must embed all of the Belong To actions into their school. Wilson's Hospital School was planning to get the quality mark on the 8th of January, just a couple of months ago. I've called the school to ask, do they accept it? And they won't answer. I've called Belong To, they won't answer. I sent registered letters to the bishops and archbishops who are the patrons of the school, as well as to the principal. And I drove down and had a conversation with the principal and handed him all of the data, statistics on the dangers of this, and said, if you bring this into school, you are complicit of child abuse. So perhaps they listened. We're not sure if they actually took the quality mark or not, but more and more parents are speaking up against this ideology.
Oh man. And the they them thing isn't even transgender, right? That is just a purity spiral or a struggle session, I think. Let's see how far I can take this. I'm no longer even pretending I'm the opposite sex. I'm going to make you say something stupid to show that you show allegiance to my ridiculousness.
Yep. And it's not even grammatically correct. They, well, where's the other person? It's plural, so it's grammatically false as well.
See, I don't mind that bit. But only because you do say they for somebody when you don't know who they are.
Yes.
Like, oh, who were they? Oh, he's a guy, and I don't, and the reason I say that, and because I always make that point, is like, that's not the reason that I care. I don't want it to be confused, like, because I think a lot of people on that side would go, oh, they're going to be mean to us and anti-progressive and stuff because they can't be bothered to learn a pronoun, which if I wanted to be polite to someone about something that was reasonable, I would be happy to consider my grammar and think about things. The reality, I don't mind saying they, but you're not a they. That's why I'm not doing it. Exactly. I'm not doing it because it's hard to do. It's actually easy. I can easily go, yes, they is the person. I don't care. That's really easy.
It's playing into that ideology. It's confirming. And even in some schools, if a boy wants to be called a she, her, there's a document that we found from the Curriculum Development Group in Ireland called the NCCA. They work with the Department of Education. There's a document that we found, and it was brought to us by the SPHE teacher who whistleblew, that says an SPHE teacher should introduce themselves to the class using their pronouns. I'm Miss London, my pronouns are she, her. Now, when we did the interview and we exposed this, as well as things like the secrecy pact that children were being asked to sign, the NCCA quickly that weekend started updating their documents online to change some of the things that we had concerns with, almost memory hole it. But luckily we archived it, so we still have a record.
It's such a weird thing because they seem to be propelled by this feeling that they're doing something righteous. And at the same time, whenever they're exposed, quickly rush to cover their tracks, which suggests that maybe they actually know what they're doing isn't right.
Absolutely. They know that. I think the people working there, so the people who are working in the NCCA, or maybe even some of the entry-level people in the Department of Education, they probably know it's wrong. Just like the librarians at the library knew it was wrong when we handed books into them and served them with a child protection violation notice. They know it's wrong, but because it's such a powerful force at the top, being driven by the top, they feel that it's way above their pay grade. We have record as well that on one of the books that we flagged showing children how to inject their own hormones, the HPRA sent out a memo to close the case, to don't talk about it. And the HPRA is our drug, kind of quality drug department in Ireland.
How does this fly with bringing in more and more immigrants who are struggling to even not attack women, and also introducing this kind of woke ideology, which is the complete opposite to the culture that they're bringing in?
Yeah, that's not going to mix well. We actually had a case a couple of years ago where a migrant from a country who, would obviously oppose the, homosexuality, he met two gay men on Grindr, which is a dating sex app, and he decapitated them. So how is it going to work when you're flooding the country with, Islamic culture, and then you're promoting the woke culture? That just doesn't work well at all. It creates chaos. But it's sort of one of those things of problem, reaction, solution. Ireland's also pushing the digital ID, which is an EU initiative. So create the problem and the chaos and the unsafe streets. We'll fix all of that with digital ID.
Oh my God. Okay, it's just got. You almost want to sit back and with popcorn and just go, okay, bring in all of these people from these different cultures and keep doing the woke ideology and making these people more and more sensitive as well, and see how it happens. Except there'll be no country left; it all have just burned to the ground, and then you can't just say, "I told you so," can you? How's Enoch Burke now? How's he doing? Where is he?
He, when I went down to visit Wilson's school, he was showing up still to work as soon as he was released from prison. I don't know if he's still making daily trips to the school. They were going to try to fine him every single day he turned up. He'd start to accumulate fines. So I don't know how often he's showing up or what he's doing for the next kind of step of his court process. It's sort of been quiet in the news, other than they are trying to recuperate the fees from him.
Is he just standing outside the gate?
He'd stand out. It was a cold freeze in Ireland. We had a cold snap, sub-zero weather, and he went out right after he got released from prison. He went and stood at that school all day long. You could even see him doing an interview with a journalist, and he was nearly shaking from the cold.
He's tenacious, isn't he?
Yes. He's making it very difficult for the state, and just like myself and others who have made it difficult, they want to crack down. He's a real headache for the state because he's exposed the nonsensical gender ideology being pushed in schools. He's not making it go away very easily.
It must be weird to go to the school as a kid and he's just, Mr. Burke's there again. And I wonder, some of them must support him and some not.
Absolutely. We, when we did a peaceful assembly there and gave a few speeches just before Christmas asking for him to be released, we had so many students give us thumbs up, clapping, smiling, really happy that we were there, because the students do not want this. So, they roll out this gender ideology and say that it's about being inclusive, and we've listened to the student voices, but the student voices they've listened to are the students who are the radical ideologues, maybe suffering from this gender confusion. The real voice of the students is they don't want this. They don't want this. So Belong To, that go into schools for the stand-up week I referenced, they ask the children to dress up in rainbow colors that week. So one class might wear red, one wears orange. We know firsthand from parents that the children who didn't want to wear the rainbow colors and be a trans ally, they wanted to wear black or white, they were told, no, if you don't dress in rainbow colors, you have to wear your full school uniform.
Oh, wow.
So you will look different if you're not an ally.
Which everybody knows, on a day when you can wear you're allowed to wear your casual clothes, is the worst thing ever.
Yes.
There was always a few kids who forgot. I don't know if you had that at school.
And it isolates. We didn't have uniforms where I went to school, but in Ireland, it's always a great treat to say, today's a non-uniform day. You can wear whatever you want.
Yeah.
But for the Belong To week, this indoctrination, they have to wear rainbows or their normal uniform. And we did a Freedom of Information request to the Department of Education to ask if this was risk assessed, letting trans activists come into school to teach children about things like transgenderism and how to change their sex and take hormones and whatever. There was no risk assessment.
Of course not.
None.
I can't remember if I did that, like forgetting and turned up in my uniform, or if it was like a recurring dream I may have had. Because it is that kind of thing, isn't it? You turn up and you're like, oh no, I've worn the thing.
You feel so different. You feel isolated,
and
excluded, and stupid.
Everyone's going, you forgot the day, and you're reminded, and everyone goes, oh, he's the idiot who forgot the thing. If they had told me at school, like, you got to do a rainbow day, like just out of wanting to push back, not about, or that I mind gay people, which is what that meant at the time. It just meant gay people. I don't have a problem, whatever, great, be gay. But now it means something completely different. Yes. Those, some of those books, you've kindly brought some of them. So I'm going to bring them up. What are some of the things should I look at? Can I read some bits out?
Absolutely. So there's one book there, the Juno Dawson author there. Juno Dawson is a man identifying as a woman. It's called This Book is Gay. And you'll see a little green sticker on the front of it, which is HI, which stands for Healthy Ireland, which is part of our Health Service Executive, which is our equivalent of the NHS. And in that book, there's a few alarming things, many, but I have posted on a couple of pages. There's this is in the age 12 section of the library. So age 12.
Yes.
They can learn how to use the Grindr dating sex app, and it teaches the child they can upload their picture. It will mark their location, and it'll let them meet the nearest homosexual in their area. Now, remember, those two men in County Sligo met someone on the Grindr app, and they were decapitated. So what might happen to a 12-year-old child who does that? It's a safety issue. It's also very highly sexual, this book. And this is back to United Nations, UNESCO, and WHO believe that children are sexual beings from birth, sexual beings. That book teaches young 12-year-olds about blowies, handies, bumming.
So, and you're saying this is, oh my gosh. For 12, when you say it's for 12-year-olds, what does that mean exactly? Is it in the library at the school where 12-year-olds can access it?
Yes, it's that was linked to the school curriculum, but we lobbied to remove that book from the school curriculum, and they did remove it from the curriculum as a resource, but it is still in libraries under age 12. So we had people all over the country go into their library and take that book out. And we haven't returned them because they should not be in the library for age 12. We served libraries peacefully with notices to put them on notice about the content for books like that. And there were about 30 other books that were equally as disturbing.
What's really disturbing here, I'm just having a little browse, is the sort of euphemistic language that they're talking in childish tones. Yes. So, here, doing the sex, bumming. It is a universal truth that many men like sticking their willies inside things. I suspect it must be biological. Well, in the absence of a vagina, gay and bi men make excellent use of the back door. Want to know a secret? Straight people have anal sex all the... What the hell is a 12-year-old accessing this for?
Exactly.
Because the thing is that, look, I'm not prudish, and I don't, people can do what they want, but we, and this is another problem, but we have the internet. And if a 12 or 13-year-old wants to look at that, the parents can try and block them and stop them. They probably shouldn't be looking at it. I don't know what lunatic says the school needs to teach this.
And it's deliberate, because when we served all the notices to the library, we went to 5 police stations with our bag of books, myself and a teacher, and we showed the books, and we filed a criminal case under the Children First Act of 2015 because it violates our own child safeguarding rules, which is showing sexually explicit material to children, which says maybe it says right in our law, maybe an act of a perpetrator or grooming a child. So we filed 5 pulse numbers with the police. They took the pulse numbers down, opened the case. We thought, great, this is going to stop it. They all called and said, case closed. You'll have to take it as a civil case. It's not criminal. So we're allowed to break the Children First Act in Ireland by having these books there, and the police don't treat it as criminal. So we filed a complaint with the Minister for Children, case closed. Minister for Education ignored it. Children's Ombudsman said, no, these haven't harmed a child yet. So Dr. Muldoon from the Children's Ombudsman Office, we filed it with Libraries Ireland. We filed it with all the county councils who are over the libraries. They all kicked it to touch. Nobody wanted to do anything about this. So we had armies of parents go into libraries all around the country. But then we were the topic of meetings, the county council meetings. They raised a motion that the far-right thugs went into libraries spreading hate and transphobia because we didn't want these adult fetishes pushed on children.
But teachers aren't actually teaching this to kids, are they?
Not in the classroom. It is on some of these books are on a resource list. There's a classroom reading list. But some teachers, if they were completely woke, they may absolutely bring this into the class, because the class now is in the toolkits, and what the teachers are taught at DCU per our whistleblower is it's about lived experience. So if a child opens up a conversation, or a teacher, they can talk about this in the class. They can bring in things like one teacher was talking about fisting in a classroom, and that recording was released to the media.
Wow.
The teacher said it's nice when you can get down and dirty with your students.
Oh, wow.
Yes, that's grooming.
I mean, this is one of those things where, like, I don't have kids, so I have to sort of then go, okay, imagine I have kids now and I love my kids and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And then I find that that's what an old man or,
you would
or
find
an
that
adult
person.
man, I would be.
You would find them.
Yeah. And often, as you were telling me off air before, they tell the kids to keep this secret, that they've spoken to them.
Yes, there was a secrecy pact put out by the NCCA, who designed the curriculum, and we've archived it. We have a hard copy. And the secrecy pact said to the sex ed teacher in school, or the social, personal and health and education teacher, SPHE, that what happens in the class stays in the class. And that goes for teachers as well. Now, we flagged that that's a huge issue. We did a podcast on this secrecy pact. It hit the news. It was a big problem. They changed their online version to say, when you're telling your parents about what happens in the class, you don't have to reference other children's names. So don't mention that Johnny told a story. They kind of removed the secrecy pact, but the teachers were still taught that. They still have the hard copy. Just because they've updated online to cover their tracks doesn't mean it's gone away. And also, children are being asked to lock their mobile phones up in the day, during the day. So the books are purchased now by the government. So the government buy those books. They lock them up at the end of the day. Children's mobile phones get locked up. They're spending 9 million euros on pouches, and we have a secrecy pact. So what happens in the classroom stays in the classroom.
What should I look at? One other, really?
Yes.
What one should I look at?
There's one in there on pronouns with Sam Smith is one of the idols there. They all have gender ideology. There's one in there about how to deal with different Twitter posts. And there's a girl in there that says, "I'm trapped in this stupid body with stupid breasts." And again, that's normalizing transgenderism, where a gender confused girl wants to remove her breasts. So, I mean, that's 3 books. I have another 20 at home, and they are all equally as bad. And the thing that parents need to know is this is pushed so relentlessly that it's not just in the sex education books, the SPHE books here, RSE in England. This is now making its way into English books, math books, because they take what's called a whole school approach. So as parents, we can opt our children out of these topics, but if it's a whole school approach, it's in every subject. You can't avoid it.
Oh my word. This is really something. And, I'd seen bits and pieces on Twitter about these kinds of books, but to actually have it in front of me now is really something, because you, like I say, you really see and you really understand, like, this is what books looked like when I was learning at school. And it's really written for, you've got this, kids. Yeah. And if it's telling them, this my stupid breasts and things, you're basically encouraging a child to cut hers off.
Yes. And there's one book, I didn't bring it today, it's out at another conference, but it talks about the genderbread person. And it states on there, you can be a boy, girl, neither or both, regardless of the sex you were assigned at birth. Now, we're not assigned sex at birth, it happens in the womb, but they're, again, normalizing that when the child comes out, the mom or dad can just say, we'll just choose that it's a boy or a girl. They can just choose on the day of birth.
How sex apps work. 1, upload a tiny pic of yourself to the app. 2, the app works out your location. 3, the app tells you who the nearest homosexuals are. 4, you then chat to them. 5, because they are near, it is easy to meet up with them. I mean, This is mad. They can figure that out for themselves when they're 18. If they can't, then they're not intellectually capable to be meeting up with other men anyway.
No. But age 12 in the libraries, and another really important point, when we talk about how relentless they are with getting this content in front of children, with our lobbying to remove these books from the children's section, what some libraries did is they moved it to the adult section. So we thought, well, that's a win. But the devil's in the detail, and we found the devil. We looked at the new library cards, and on the new Libraries Ireland website and on the library cards they issue, it states that age 12, which is a young adult, can now access the adult section. So yes, they've moved the books, but now they're giving age 12 access to the adult section, all the DVDs and books. So they will try to get to your children one way or the other.
And what adults would read these books anyway?
You wouldn't talk about them at a dinner party. I mean, the Trans Teen Survival Guide tells children they can order puberty blockers and hormones on the internet, and it even has pictures of how they can inject their bodies with those drugs they order online. I mean, that's a serious safety issue.
You were talking about the words like mother. What instead of mother, what would Ireland prefer people use?
Well, we all use mother, despite the fact they tried to erase it, and they want in the classroom. One of the guides on how to create an inclusive classroom is to avoid family language like mother and father, because not everybody has one of those apparently. So we don't have any other word for mother. We should, they can never replace that.
Did birth giver not catch on?
We haven't. I haven't heard birth giver, and I heard in England it did have birthing person or something. It was ridiculous. But
birth woman would be problematic because it's woman, and it implies that women give birth.
Exactly.
What were the other words they were trying to get rid of?
They were trying to get rid of mother and woman in the Constitution just last March, which they failed miserably. Back in 2022, when the Natural Women's Council first formed, they were trying to erase woman from the Maternity Protection Act, obviously to be inclusive for trans men who breastfeed.
The chest feeders.
Chest feeders.
These are, because there's not just that, there's also this whole society of actual just men who want to breastfeed with their hairy nipples.
It's a fetish, really, isn't it?
I think it is, yeah. I think it's a fetish, and it took over everywhere. And apparently, Helen Joyce was telling me that sort of the UK was the last domino to fall with that one.
Yes.
But it did fall.
Yeah, and I do feel like, I think that if you look outside on the streets, you think, you know what, wokeism is collapsing. They've had their day in the sun, the men in dresses. Nobody's buying it anymore. So it looks like it might be disappearing. But what parents need to know is, and Natural Women's Council have partnered up now with Public Child Protection in Wales. They do fantastic work. Groups in the UK, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. And it is in the classroom. So although on the streets it's disappearing, it's actually getting really bad in classroom. Last week in Australia, they caught a school teaching bestiality under the sex education. And bestiality, for anyone who doesn't know, that's sex with animals. That came into the classroom taught by a pro-LGBTQI plus teacher. So it is in the classroom.
Was he definitely not saying like this is a bad thing that shouldn't happen?
No, it's just another preference, another sexual preference.
Is that how he taught it?
Yes. And parents, I think, in Australia are going to be seeking legal guidance on all of this, as they should. And it's only going to take one lawsuit here before in Ireland or in the UK. There's already lawsuits against the transgenderism in the Tavistock clinic. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, the gender confirming clinic had to close down due to the brave whistleblowers, but children are still being harmed psychologically in the classroom, not just by the transgender ideology, but by the Marxism. It's getting pushed right down to age 5 in Ireland, the social justice Marxism. And that's making every child feel that there are all these problems and they're oppressed. So whether they're oppressed due to their, the critical race theory says you should feel privileged if you're white, male, or Irish, privileged. So you're oppressed, but based on your skin color, based on your sexual preference. It's always about the oppression. Mm. And the only way to escape that oppression is to become trans or become, one of the minority groups or be an ally. So they have this ally program. So you either join the minority or you become an ally, and they indoctrinate the whole class. And they're trying to find something moral for them to hang on to, because all of this is so deviant. And the one thing they're giving the children now to hang on to and create the fear and anxiety is the climate alarmism. It's all under climate. It's green. The world's going to burn up, and we have to be moral and raise our climate flags as well as all the other flags they give them. Climate flags, pride flags, progressive flags, Palestinian flags. There's a flag for every day of the week now, indoctrinating children.
I think the older you get, no matter what side of the political spectrum you are, you're more likely to sort of take the climate stuff a little bit less seriously each year, because most of us remember being told that by now the UK would be underwater.
Yes.
And it's not. So yes, I'm sure there are problems and there are issues and there are some human-made ones compared to, but the alarmism isn't helping, and it's not healthy for a child to be going to bed having nightmares about that, which they will. So bloody hell. With all of that, look, there's encroaching Islamism, there's mass immigration in an already small population that is completely changing the face of Ireland. There is a continued, I suppose, replacement of what was a religious country, a Catholic country, with this kind of teaching of insane books for children. Is there any hope for Ireland?
I always live off optimism or hopium. I always think there always is a chance. And when we met with one of the staff members from a senator's office in Ireland last summer to present everything that's happening, the solution was we need a lot of angry parents. So I believe we can stop a lot of this if people stop being silent, stop being complicit. We need a lot of angry parents to be saying, I don't consent to this. I don't give my approval. Or a lot of angry people to rise up and say, I don't consent to our borders being flooded. I want social cohesion. So the strength will come from the grassroots. So I don't want to give up on Ireland just yet. Things are very, very bad in Ireland at the moment. They're going to get worse if they push through the hate speech and continue to flood our borders. But we need a lot more people to stop being silent, to break the silence and bring the big issues into small talks and feel comfortable having those talks.
And how can those people join you and spread the word and follow you?
Yeah, so we have our website is naturalwomen'scouncil.ie, and that has all of our campaigns and who we are. We have from the Natural Women's Council website, we have our YouTube channel, and that has all of this information, but does a bit of a deeper dive. And it doesn't just apply to Ireland, it applies to all the schools in the West. And then I have a Twitter account, which is my own personal one, is JKLUNDEN. And then I have Natural Women's IE for my campaigning. And also one thing we are promoting is natural health as well in the chaos and the campaigning we do against all of this wokeology and everything. We also are really big into natural health. So I'll be launching naturalliving.ie very soon. We're going to help our clients with clean air, clean water, clean products, and supporting ethical suppliers and producers like myself to keep us going in our fight for humanity. And we've partnered with a great company, NutraHealth 365 is our first vendor that we're going to be promoting their supplements on the naturalliving.ie. So it's about slaying the dragons and the bad things, but also helping people stay strong and healthy and positive with our natural living and natural lifestyle.
Who's a heretic you admire?
Heretic I admire, goodness. Okay, so heretic, someone who didn't break away from religion, as some people would believe that's what a heretic is. I think I just went recently to the Patrick Pearse Museum in Ireland, and Patrick Pearse was a freedom fighter in the 1916 Rising, and I read a letter that he wrote to his mother just before he was executed. He was in Kilmainham jail, and during the 16 Rising, which in America I would have thought that all of the Irish were the fighting Irish and they rose up. But I learned that it was a real minority. And Patrick Pearse, in his letter to his mom, stated, people will talk bad about us, but in the end, they will see we were right. And that really hit home. I actually felt really moved in that museum, hearing his words that people will talk bad about us, and people talk bad, the state, the media, I'm under attack. But in the end, when all of this settles and we speak the truth, we are on the right side of history. So that I think Patrick Pearse being in Ireland would be someone I would admire.
A very interesting heretic. People, please go follow Jana London, and all the links that she's mentioned, we'll stick those down below. You can go and help her and fight against Ireland turning into another airport. Hit like here. Keep on watching this channel.